One in Three is intended for mature audiences. Episodes contain explicit content and may be triggering as they often include violence and other varying forms of abuse such as emotional, psychological, sexual, and physical. In most cases, names have been changed to protect all involved. Please note, statements and opinions of guests do not necessarily reflect those of my own. Hi, warriors. Welcome to One in Three. I'm your host, Ingrid. Guess what? Yeah, today we are diving into another episode on narcissism. Honestly, I don't think I could cover this topic too much, but hey, if you think I need to chill, you seriously have to let me know. This one's a little bit different though. Dare I say fun? I know it doesn't make sense, but hang tight. You'll get it soon. Today, I'm joined by Darren Elliott, and he shares his unique take on narcissism. Let's get into it. Hi, Darren. Thank you for joining me today. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss, not one of my favorite things to have experienced, but I'm glad you have decided to come on today.
Thank you, Ingrid. I think we're going to make an unusual episode, making narcissism actually fun. It's not really a fun topic, but it's such a passion, and there's so much to learn from, and it is really something that impacts us all, as you know.
Yeah, definitely. So before we jump into the whole guts of the conversation, could you give a background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am, and in fact, while I'm giving my background, if I can go a little longer, people can identify with what's happening there too. You know, I grew up in a lovely Christian family, and our family story was we were, a perfect, happy Christian family, all happy and healthy and great. Until one day, my brother, who was 13 when I was 12, accidentally shot himself in the head with a gun. So, and it was an accident. We're starting with deep diving.
Yeah, we're just going to jump right on in.
And then thereafter, the family story changed to being we were the perfect, happy family. And then that happened to Mark. And then everything went off the rails. Well, I remember being a depressed kid before my brother accidentally shot himself in the head. I remember him being an angry kid before that happened. I don't think he did it on purpose. I do think he did it by accident. But the perfect family story is something that's extremely common in narcissistic families, where there's a family narrative, and we're all sort of fighting to keep that narrative alive, and we don't even realize we're doing it. So narcissism tends to be invisible if you're living in the middle of it. And my background, for me, it was invisible until I was middle-aged and I was being abused for the last time in my relationships, and like, oh my, what has just happened? It was the end of a relationship that had just destroyed me. And the end of the relationship looked like an off switch, because we were like loving and romantic and wonderful, and then we had a conversation, and then we were done. Like, we lived together, we had dreams together. It was like, but there was a talk about, do you want to buy a house in this city? And I was like, no, not really. And it wasn't even a heated discussion. It was just like, and then the next day I overhear that he is, and we're done. And it was just like, we were just suddenly done. It was not hard for them to go from 100 to 0. It devastated me. I didn't understand what was happening. It ripped my guts out. I didn't have an off switch. I didn't understand at all what was happening. But narcissism tends to have a split. But the point is, I grew up in a family system. I did not recognize it. I did not see it until mid 40s when this happened, and then early 40s, and then the pain of it, and the therapist not understanding what was happening again and again and again. And in my own family, we all ended up in therapy, but the therapist didn't help. They didn't understand what was happening. This was really, really not understood 10 years ago, and it's just sort of understood now. So I ended up in therapy school because, just to save myself, could you say, once I recognized that what I was dealing with was narcissistic abuse. I still didn't see it in my own family system. I just recognized it happened to me in my relationship. So I started this 5-year psychotherapy program. And when we got to the point that we could work with clients, I started working with narcissists because it was my passion. And as soon as I could get clients on Psychology Today, I started working with narcissistic clients because they couldn't find anyone to work with them or even willing to work with them. And I was like, well, I'm a student therapist. Let's see what we can do. They were willing to do that. They're almost never aware, as you know.
Right. I was going to say, it's amazing
that's the thing.
You want clients. Yeah.
It only happens when they're about to lose everything. So, they have a great wife and they have beautiful kids and they have such a great life, but none of their family like them. Their wife has given them the last heave ho therapy or we're done. And then they come in for therapy. And usually the partners found me, not them.
That makes sense. Okay.
And it really is. They've been pushed and pushed and pushed. And they come in thinking, well, apparently she thinks something's wrong with me. And, and if I'm not here with you, she's, I have to leave. So we start there. Some people come in thinking they're a narcissist and they're not. Couples come in not knowing that one of them is. That happens too. I'm watching the volley, and I was like, oh dear. I watched the ball go over, and then the narcissist twists the ball, and then serves it back, and it looks like it's not even the same ball. And then the not narcissist serves it back, and they twist it again and send it back, and I'm like, okay, traditional therapy does not work for this. Mm-hmm. It has not been successful because traditional therapy is holding everything in neutrality. Oh, it's a bunch of miscommunications. Oh, it's just a misunderstanding. They often keep them together and keep the abuse going because the narcissist is sort of playing the same game with them that they're playing with their partner. When I start working with someone who's suffering from narcissism, the first thing I need to do is guess what's happening inside for them. So I start predicting. When I said that, did you feel like this?
I did.
Right? And when
how do you do? Okay, yeah.
So
you've got me hooked. So I'm in for this.
Because they have a split, and that's what's going so very wrong. And when I mean a split, well, firstly, let's get into narcissism real quick because it's a word that's thrown around like candy and it's misused as an insult mostly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right.
Firstly, we all have narcissism, so it's not something we have or don't have. It's something we all do have. But secondly, it's a process that Freud was using the term narcissism to describe childhood processes, childish processes, in fact, that we're meant to grow out of. And the thing is, so during childhood, where thousands of neural pathways are being created every single day, and we're getting imprinted by the way, we come out just with our little eyes and nose and ears, and all we know is what's going on around us. And the people in our lives form the relationship patterns that we recognize as familiar and normal. If those relationship patterns are mom's a narcissist and dad's an empath or dad's a narcissist, those are going to be normal for us. Whatever it is that we're growing up with is normal for us. Firstly. So, and the train just went off the rails there.
I was with you.
Because it goes so many places. No, but I literally forgot where that train was coming from. Just take me back a step.
So we're talking about what is narcissism.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. We were talking about the split. And then I went off. There's so many different details because every different little topic could be a chapter by itself. Yeah. And my ADHD it sometimes takes me to the next step and forgets what the step before was. And then I forget, we were talking about this because I can go down a whole new path. So what narcissism is and isn't, well, the main problem of narcissism is the things haven't grown up. If you're not playing soccer, you don't get good at soccer. If you're not being emotionally attuned to, if you're avoiding your emotional experiences, you're not going to get emotionally mature either. You don't become emotionally mature by not feeling your emotions. Emotion is a capacity, and our capacity to feel takes work. And many men specifically have been taught not to feel. And that in itself causes narcissism, because if we learn not to feel, we also learn not to feel with others. So if you have a partner who never goes to sadness, they also don't go to your sadness, which means they don't have empathy for sadness. That's the first thing that's going wrong, because they don't go to sadness. So how do they know how you feel? They don't. And then you literally feel misunderstood because you are literally misunderstood. They do not go to those emotions. So they absolutely do not understand what your experience is. And then they end up doing really hurtful things, and they don't acknowledge, and they don't recognize often how hurtful it is because they don't let themselves feel those things. So and often this is tied to toxic positivity. It's often tied to, let's just be cheerful, let's just be happy, oh, let's look at the bright side, and avoid feeling this and avoid feeling that. We can't avoid our feelings. It ends up sort of accumulating because we experience our emotions as energy. And one of the myths that we're dealing with right now, men and women both have nervous systems. That shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone.
No, it should not.
And they work pretty much the same. In fact, there's highly sensitive men and there's highly sensitive women. But culturally, women are sort of encouraged to develop emotionally. They're encouraged to be vulnerable. They're encouraged to connect with each other in deeper ways. And that causes them to grow up emotionally. They're dealing with their emotions. They're dealing with their friends' emotions. And we mature that way. Men traditionally are being told, buck up and be a man. And if they're crying, they're like, oh, stop crying. That's nothing. Be a man. And so then they slowly shut down. And over time they shut down. But we're not born shut down. But a big part of what's gone wrong in a lot of countries, and it's certainly true for the US, is men came back from war traumatized. And dads and granddads and partners came back from war absolutely traumatized. And we had no idea what that meant. So they come back from war and then they're expected to be happy. They're like, oh, aren't you happy to be home? Yeah. They're not happy to be home. They actually feel trauma horrible but they're trying to, no, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be here. And they learn to ignore this huge bubble of trauma by shutting down and by being strong all the time. And if they have really, really strong ideals, they might be able to hold it together. But so many became alcoholic. And they also just taught the next generation not to feel their emotions because they couldn't themselves. And they became abusive partners usually. And the wife would be like, oh, he wasn't like this before the war, poor guy. And so they accept the abuse. It's like, yeah, he doesn't mean it. He wasn't like this before. This is just the war. It became normalized in so many families, and kids became desensitized in so many families. Mm-hmm. And that generation really created the macho generation. If you can't feel, it's like a billionaire who has no empathy, considering empathy a weakness because it's not something they have themselves. Empathy is a strength, right? Empathy is a higher level emotional skill that not everyone gets to, because if you're not feeling those feelings, like I said, you're not feeling them with others, and you don't have empathy. Empathy is not feeling sorry for someone, it's feeling with someone. And I can give a real clear example of empathy. I don't want to throw under the bus, but it was just such a clear one. There's a dog here sitting with me, and there's Jake. Aww. Oh, you can barely see him.
Is it Jake?
There's Jake.
I love it.
We lost Jake's daughter last year. So it was a really horrible thing. And she was 7. It was unexpected. She was well Saturday. She was gone Monday. We were crying. We were upset. We were heartbroken. We call my partner's mother. She sees us crying on the phone. Immediately she's crying. Right. That's what empathy looks like. Our mirror neurons cause us to feel the same way the other person's feeling. And then they feel understood by us because we're literally feeling with them. And we evolved to do this. Mm-hmm. But people have learned not to do this. And if you're not doing this, then you're lacking that deep connection. So we made another phone call right after talking to their mother. And the next phone call we made, they looked and they saw us and they're like, oh, what's going on? It's like, lady died. And we're crying like, oh, that's too bad. The weather here is really, really hot. Oh my goodness. Gosh. Immediately changed the subject, no feeling with, and then eventually came back to it. It's like, well, that's a shame, lady died. I guess it was her time. And that was it. And I was like, so minimize and not feel with and try to fix are usually what someone's going to do if they're not feeling with others. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be a narcissist to not feel with others. Trauma causes us to not feel with others. But narcissists also do not feel with others. That is what's going wrong. Right, so that's what the two processes look like. And they don't realize they're doing it. They think they're there for you if they say the thing, Like, I don't know, I was so supportive. But they literally never go to any of those emotions with you. So you feel alone emotionally. Our emotions aren't meant to feel dangerous. We're meant to feel our emotions as waves of emotions, and we can deal with them. And a lot of the work of narcissism, firstly, is getting in their inner circle because there's no one there. And that's the crux of narcissism too, is there's no one they fully trust. So there's always a cloak of, even my partner, I don't totally let into my secret experience. There's things I hide from my partner. There's things I hide from, and that's what narcissism looks like. It lives in shame. And to work with narcissism, we actually need to bring it into the light. It needs to just be out in the open. So if someone comes in and they have a family, lucky them, and it's the only reason they come in. To meet someone who's struggling with narcissism, who's not in a relationship, they just don't have the motivation for change. They need to have something they're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
The whole family needs to be involved in it because they all need to learn what narcissist things look like, and then they all become against the narcissism, not against the person. So it just becomes what we accept can shift, and what we fight ends up getting stuck. And what people usually do with narcissism is try not to be narcissistic. Just try not to be. Try not to be. It's like try not to be anxious. Don't be anxious. Don't be depressed. Like it just, it doesn't work for any of those things. We need to be able to feel through what we're experiencing with our nervous systems. And
Mm-hmm.
that's so much of the work. So they learn to feel, but they have trauma work at the beginning because there's too much they've been avoiding for too long, and everything feels dangerous. So it's the work is widening that window of tolerance. They come in with this range of emotion where they're just feeling sort of cheerful and happy and okay, and then they're not feeling up here and they're not feeling up here down here. And that's what people also misunderstand and need to understand too. When you are desensitizing yourself to painful emotions, to fear, to uncomfortableness, to disappointment, to anger, even to sadness, to grief, you are desensitizing your nervous system also to pleasure, to joy. You can't just choose which things you're desensitizing to. You're turning down the volume on everything when you do that. And that's what people don't realize. And that's part of toxic positivity. You're turning down the volume, and then you never quite feel satisfied either. So instead of feeling actual joy, they're chasing dopamine, chasing dopamine, chasing dopamine. The biggest trip, the best dinner, the best this, going over here, going over there. I mean, more likely to have affairs, chasing the dopamine. It's common in society as well, right? Because we've been taught to chase dopamine on, doom scrolling on our phones, chasing dopamine. We go from device to device to device. So many people, if you're avoiding those emotions, you are not fully living, and you will feel numb. And the less you allow your feel, the more numb you will feel, because you're literally avoiding your nervous system. So of course you feel numb. You're not letting yourself feel things. But we don't seem to realize that we can't just not feel the negatives. We need to be able to feel the negative. As an example, I started singing 2 years ago, just a couple of years ago. I was a singer when I was younger. It was my joy. It really was my biggest joy, but it wasn't something my dad could do. So he didn't like it. And he wanted me to be an engineer. But all my teachers were like, your voice is a gift. You have to be a singer.
Yeah.
But to force me into engineering, he shamed me for singing again and again and again and again. So I would sing at church, and he'd be saying, "Oh, wasn't Darren great? But didn't he do a great job?" And then around the corner, he would immediately make me feel like garbage, like, "Oh, you weren't very good. I was just being supportive." And they were
Oh.
just being kind. "No, you're not all that. Stop being a show off. No one likes a show off. Don't make people listen to you." Like he did it enough times that I literally had a shame response when I sang, and I felt guilty, and I felt like I was making people listen to me, and no one likes a show off was like those paradoxical ideas stopped me singing eventually. I just gave it up, and I didn't bring it up again until the old guy died, and during pandemic as well. So I started singing at home, and eventually I wanted to sing in front of others, and so I started singing live on Facebook, live on Instagram, sitting at the piano singing, and then you press the button going live, and all of a sudden the heart rate goes up, and all of a sudden I feel a flush. It's hard to breathe. My hands are awkward on the piano. But when I say, oh my gosh, you guys, I turned this on and now I'm feeling so anxious, my heart rate's going really fast. And then as I include myself, literally, even though they're not there, I calm down and now I'm not anxious anymore. We need to be able to acknowledge what it is we're feeling. If I sit there saying, don't feel anxious, I'm going to be anxious. We need to express it. Honestly, we evolved as human beings. We are pack animals. And we forget that we're pack animals. We live so separately today. We're not meant to live so separately. We're meant to lean on each other and help each other process emotions together and all the things. And when you don't do that, you put yourself on a desert island. If you can, so a lot of narcissists are just too alone and they're on a desert island and they lose reality and they gaslight themselves and they gaslight you and they over-identify with their thoughts because they're not checking them out. They're just believing them. Our thoughts are just creative processes in our mind. If we're not checking them out with others, eventually they're going to go away from reality and then they end up creating their own narrative. And their own narrative is this, and then they try to pull you into their narrative instead of actually joining you in reality, and they have alternate facts. Alternative facts. That horrible phrase that got coined. Well,
do they do that to be mean or like why do they do that?
It's complicated because there's different reasons why, but they also gaslight themselves and believe themselves.
Okay. So they could believe their own lies. Like
there's childish processes that did not grow up. And one of them is the inability to keep two ideas true at the same time. And that's part of what goes wrong in relationships. It's part of why they become abusive quite often. It's because when I'm mad at you, I forget that you're the person who loves me and that I love you, and I'm just in my anger. And if I'm just in my anger, I lose my compassion, I lose my grace, and I might say really mean things or do something really mean and vindictive, or I've learned that it's not okay, so I'm passive aggressive and I'm pretending to be happy, but really I'm plotting against you, or really I'm doing something like taking your keys and hiding it in a weird place just so I know it's going to cause you problems later, like little vindictive, annoying things, because they've gotten triggered into this alternate state where they literally forget we're on the same team. And so those two states are separate. That's the problem. And the work is integrating them over time by because first they let me into their inner circle, and then we're working, and then I'm on both sides of the split with them. And as I'm going back and forth with them, they're coming to know this version of themselves more, this version they get triggered into, and it's just automatic and it just takes over. That's just it's just a trauma energy, because when we get triggered by trauma energy, it turns off big parts of our brain. And it's what's going wrong today as well, honestly, in society. When we are afraid, that part of our brain turns off. The empathy part, the most evolved parts of us turn off, and we are in fight and flight mode. When we're in fight and flight mode, we are not empathic, and we are watching populations being pushed into fight and flight mode, causing them to turn off their empathy for each other. And we're watching it in real time in big scale, and we're watching it being promoted by billionaires who want division. Truly, because you can conquer people who are divided. You can bully a population when they are divided. And all this division's just fake division. It's just absolutely fake division. Americans are just a bunch of Americans first, but they've been taught to fear each other. And we're watching the alternate reality. And a narcissist really does have a lack of trust for others. They think you're lying, so I might as well lie first. Or you're cheating, so I might as well cheat first. Or you're going to do this, so I'm going to do it first. As the most obvious example in the world, because we're all watching it every day if we turn on a TV, Trump really did think all the countries were taking advantage of us. He really did believe that. Canada's taking advantage of us. We need to punish them. Because if they weren't taking advantage of us, we would be rich and happy right now, and we're not. So there's something wrong. But he believes that. And he doesn't understand economics because he doesn't allow in reality. That one lives in about 85% his own reality. A narcissist tends to have a certain amount of reality that they share and a certain amount of reality that's theirs. I find most of them are more like 50, but he really is like 15% with us and 85% in his own created narrative. And that justifies anything, right? It justifies anything.
Well, so I have a question. Like, for
Sorry.
I have so
See, I
many,
just go all over
no,
the
I have
place.
so many questions.
Uh,
But so for you to be treating a narcissist who has, say, like 85% with true reality and their own reality, do you just call them out on that, and are they receptive to you? I mean, I know, like, if it was their partner, probably would not be receptive, but since they're there for treatment.
yeah, it's this is a new interesting thing that's coming up for me. AI is not going away, so we might as well not pretend it's not here and not use it. I have been actually having success with narcissists using AI, and
Really?
because because that lack of trust, they do develop a trust for me. I really am not judging. I am not here to judge. I'm not judging them as bad. I'm not judging them as good. I'm really just, they're having a human experience, and if their human experience is hurting others, I want to help them work on that. But I'm not judging them. They are the way they are because they're a human, and all the things that happened in their life cause them to be how they are right now. And it, there's if you go to prisons, there's so much trauma. There's so much trauma that causes someone to defend themselves and to feel that anger and such. So they really don't feel judged. So we do create a different kind of connection than they've had with anyone else. The work is, though, having them expand that connection to others. And that's where it goes wrong with a lot of therapy, because the narcissistic people in my family, they learn to be close to their therapist. They tell their therapist all their problems. Literally no one else knows. Well, they're still living in their narcissism with everybody else except their therapist. We need to teach them to learn vulnerability with more than just us, and to have them exploring in the world with developing more trusting, more honest processes. And that's where I came up with the concept of loops, because it's easier to love someone who's loving us back, for example. And if someone doesn't have any trust for humans, they often can learn trust for an animal, because animals are they're so unconditional. That dog loves you. It just loves you. And even you're mean to that dog, and then he loves you again. Because just like a narcissist, a dog lacks object constancy. And he looks at you and he feels love, and he forgets that you were so mean yesterday, because they're like 3-year-olds. They do not have the full picture. So practicing with someone who loves you back really easily, they learn that love feels good in their own body. Because for some reason they think when I love someone, I'm giving something away. Like, no. Love feels great inside you. You get to feel the feeling of love inside you. And if you're not loving people, you're missing out on all those feelings of love in your own body. That's one of the things that gets them. They realize they're missing out on things. They don't want to miss out on things. And they want to have their best relationships, don't they? Of course they do. It's like, well, there's only one way to have your best relationships. There's no other way you can do it. You can be on your deathbed, and people can be there because they have to be, because you're giving them the house, and because you did this and did that, so they have to be there. Or they can be there because they want to be there, because they felt loved by you, because they felt cared for by you, because how you made them feel was special. That is what a true deep relationship looks like, and that's what we need to aim for. So when I work with someone who's narcissistic, they need to be willing to have love and kindness as goal behavior firstly, but they're also moving towards that, recognizing, oh, how other people feel with me really matters, so I shouldn't just do whatever I want and manipulate to get always what I want. That lack of empathy, right, has them thinking of themselves too much. And that's a natural trauma response too.
Yeah. So, okay. So now I guess the confusing part is when
There's so much.
all of it.
So much. Yeah.
All of it's the confusing part. But if so, you're in a relationship with a narcissist, and you love them, and you are being kind, and you're giving them all of that. Why do they then seem to turn on you?
Right. It's because all the things they avoid become a charged energy that builds up. And they're also avoiding shame. So they turn on you because when they have a feeling that's uncomfortable, they think it's your fault. So if they walk in the room and you look at them and they suddenly feel guilty, or they feel sad, or they feel like not cherished in some kind of way. And it feels like I can tell you in the relationship that ended my ability to not see narcissism, this is what was happening. I wasn't allowed to have a mood of any other kind except admiration. And because if they came home and I didn't look at them like, yay, you're home, anything else was not okay.
Yeah,
so
over the top.
Yeah, and I was okay with that. I grew up. That was normal for me. Yeah, sure. You come in, you fawn over them. Yeah, you're home, and I felt it anyway. I was happy they're home, and I love them, and I feel big feelings. But if I had a bad day, oh God help me. It's because I wasn't allowed to be in a grumpy mood. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, nothing. My mom's dog died. It's been in my life for 20 years. Like, yeah, but like, why'd you look at me like that? Like what? You know what you did. You looked at me like, and I'm like, what? And then all of a sudden you're in some kind of fight and they're yelling at you, and it's like, what? And it's because my mood impacted their mood. They can co-regulate with the happy things because they're not defending from them. So they kind of expect you to keep them in a good mood. And that's where the emotional manipulation happens, and it's so invisible because we don't really notice that we're managing their mood, especially if we've learned to do it. When we're doing things they like, they'll be in a cheerful mood and they'll be treating us nice and they'll be giving us approval. But if we're doing things they don't like, they'll be devaluing us either outright or in their head. And they might be cold, they might be mean, but it truly is, we're making them feel good. They're on our team. We're making them not feel good. I hate you. Like, it's that lack of object constancy that they never get past. They never grow out of. And it's that split. You're dealing with that split. When you're doing things I like, I love you. When you're not doing things with you like, they devalue, in fact. And in those moments, they may forget all the things they love about you, and they're just remembering all the things they don't like, because their two energies are so separate. And now they're like, oh, you always do this. And remember that time 10 years ago when you made me wait for blah, 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 blah. They're just remembering all those things because our feelings tend to live in the energy. We experience our emotions as energy, as positive energy and negative energy. And when they're in that negative energy, they've literally forgotten all this stuff that happened in their positive energy that they've joined you for. And they demand you to be that person they can join. Mm-hmm. If you're not able to, if I wasn't able to make them feel cheerful, I was being accused of being abusive. And I knew myself not to be abusive, and it always was like, what is he talking about? Things that aren't true don't hurt as much, but the twisting and the twisting and the twisting and the twisting over time, you get blamed for things a lot, and there's projection, and they think you're feeling the way they feel. And that's something I deal with now. When they're feeling upset, they always accuse me of being upset. When they're feeling angry, it's like, what? You're so angry, and I'm like, literally neutral. I'm not. And then they won't believe me. They're telling me, no, you're not. You're so angry. I can tell you're angry. It's like, no, you're angry. You are angry. It's really hard for them to be able to, if it's not a feeling that they identify with, they will be pointing to you as the cause of why they're feeling angry. And it must be because you're so angry that they're kind of feeling this. And they believe it. They really do believe it. And they will treat you in the way they think you are. If they think you're being mean, they're going to be mean. And if they think you're being angry, they'll probably be angry. All that projection. But the turning on you, it really is, it's the two energies that they turn when they're in their negative energy, really.
And then, so I know that you're more on the side of helping narcissists recover. Is that the right word? I don't know if that's the right term.
Well, yeah. I haven't heard it used by anyone else, but I call my clients recovering narcissists, because when they're in recovery and we're dealing with everything out in the open and they're dealing with their narcissism as it happens, they're in recovery and they're not actively acting out their narcissism. So instead of acting on it, they're sharing it and talking about it and starting to understand themselves. They have to grow up emotionally. So it's not a comfortable thing to do. They're usually very proud people to realize you're an emotional child. It's hard for them to come to grasp with.
Right.
But that's what we're doing. And, the train just left again. Shoot.
Okay, I'm going to get you on another train quick then. While that one's out. So I know that you're working more with them,
Oh,
but
right.
what would your recommendation be? Like, you wouldn't recommend somebody stay in this relationship and try to adjust their behavior to keep that individual at bay. Like, what
Yeah.
do they do? Because then you get destroyed in that process.
So why I call them a recovering narcissist is because when they're not recovering, they are a narcissist again. So they need to be in recovery, just like an alcoholic needs to be in recovery, not reaching for the alcohol, having a support system in place so that there's enough support they don't need to reach for the alcohol. A recovering narcissist needs to have the support in place that they're continuing to practice positive relationship skills. And that's why I call it the love loops. Because the more you love me, the more I love you. The more you love me, the more I love you. And they get into these patterns that they like. They don't want to, and it's easier to keep it going. And these are patterns they never felt before because they weren't going to any of those emotions. So they're missing out on the emotions up here and the emotions down here. So we're widening their ability to feel emotion, which is, feels dangerous to them. So we need to create loops in the positive emotions that they're sharing with others because they do. I love you, and then I'm excited to see you, and you're excited to see me, and then I'm excited to see you. We create these things together, and they can have little experiments. I walk through I live in a condo building and so when I leave, there's a concierge person in the lobby. I like the concierge people. I like saying hello to them. I want to know how their day's going. They're part of my little world. So when I walk up to concierge, there's a smile, there's a friendliness, some people think the concierge are horrible, but they only go when they have problems and they're angry, so they walk up to concierge like, this isn't working. And then they meet the concierge version that's like, okay, let me see whatever version they get to meet because we co-create our relationships. And that's one thing that the narcissist doesn't realize. You are co-creating how people are with you. And we're all doing that. So they can have these experiments, go to the grocery store, and instead of judging the person at the cash register and looking at them for faults, do the opposite. Look for the things that are good about that person. Look for, because they eventually learn that it feels so much better to live in the positive. When you look for the good in others, it brings out the good in others, and when you look for the bad in others, it actually brings out bad in others. It's if and that's part of what goes wrong when they're always accusing you of being creepy, angry and whatever. So they go in and they notice the good things about the person in front of them, and they might even say something nice, and then they notice, oh, it's quite different when I do this. So they start to learn that they're co-creating these relationships, and so the more they're getting vulnerable and the more they're dealing with their deeper feelings, the more they're able to feel on both sides. And so it needs it needs to create they need to create those loops and have a few trusting loops that there's so I'm not the only person in their inner circle. And so if I go away, they end up crashing again. They need to have some people in their inner circle, and they need to develop trust, because trust is what's lacking, right? It's and they need to be open about what's happening for them. The people in their immediate path need to understand the emotional processes that they're dealing with, actually, because it's so hurtful. It can be so hurtful.
It is.
And you can't love someone to being better. I don't want to make someone thinking you can just love them and now they'll be fine. No, they'll still be abusive. Don't try to love them to be better.
I love what you're saying. I don't want someone to interpret this as, okay, I can fix them.
You can't fix them.
I can, yeah.
It is a relational disorder, though. So relational disorder means who they are with others is the disorder. So who they are with others is where the work is. And I practice relational therapy. So it means we're having a real relationship and we're working on their relationship skills together. So if they don't have loved ones in their life, there's not really any hope for them unless they're willing to create relationships, because it only heals in relationship. And too many narcissists go and learn to be strong alone in therapy, and then they're just a strong, happy, alone narcissist who, unaware of their negative impacts around them, and think they're fabulous because they're on the board of deacons and because they serve soup at the soup kitchen, and what a wonderful person I am. A narcissist doesn't have the feeling that they're good, so they often end up looking for check marks to prove that they're good. And they're overrepresented in medicine, for one, because they're proving how smart they are, and they often want to take care of others. And doctors are quite respected, and they want to be respected, so they want to be the top doctor, and they so there's quite a few of that. And narcissism doesn't have to be bad. We need people with narcissism to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to some of the traits, we need people who are happy to have the microphone and like the validation of applause. That's good. It's not hurting anyone. But narcissists they're addicted to validation. You have to validate. And if you're not validating, what's wrong with you? Like, they need too much validation. Their sense of self is so weak. They need a constant validation. And if you give them negative validation, if they don't like you, or they discard you, or they attack you, or they really need positive validation. So that's what goes wrong in relationships too, is because they cannot take in the things that they do wrong. They defend against it, right? The partner's trying to say, every time I do this happens, and they're already defending, like, oh yeah, but blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you're not taking in anything that they're saying. They don't know they're not. They're arguing before the information even gets there. Part of what's gone wrong, and this is another controversial topic, opening the door. I was taught to have blind faith. When you're taught to have blind faith and to just listen without questioning, and just to accept without questioning, and then you're taught the media is lying to you, and then you're taught science is lying to you, you leave reality, right? And people have been gaslit out of reality. Just like a narcissist it leaves reality, there's been a cultural departure from reality as well, a doubling down against the actual information for the narrative that I have. That's exactly what a narcissist does. They have their narrative, and they're trying to pull you into their narrative. And they will gaslight you into their narrative, speaking things that aren't true as if they are true, and repeating it enough times that it sort of sounds true, or you just get used to hearing it.
I had a question. Oh, hold on. And it just left my brain. Okay, so what about like the narcissist when they are like mean to their partner, but then to everybody else, they're the most amazing person. And it makes that partner question their reality even more, and question like, well, is it just me?
Yeah.
I'm being told it's me. Is it me?
That is so hard. The thing is, once you see that other side of themselves, so once you're privy to the fact that there is a mean side, then you're going to see it a lot more, because they're not going to hide it as much. And they're going to think you deserve it. And because they actually think everyone else is playing the same game of fake that they are. They think, well, yeah, we're all just pretending to be good. Oh, yeah, we're all pretending to be kind. Oh, yeah, we're all pretending to be. And like, no, I actually feel kindness. Like, I actually want to help this person, because it makes me feel good to help this person. It's like, no, I actually find this person interesting. I'm not pretending. But they think we're all pretending. So they have this pretend thing, and they join us in our positive energies. So they're able to feel it with us. But then they leave, and they're in this yucky, dirty energy, and they end up showing it to their intimate partner, because they just end up not being able to not to. But then they punish you for it, but no one else can see it. No one else can see it. Yeah. It's so hard. It's happening to me as well. Because the friends all know this version, and I know this and this version, and they just don't get that there's this other version I'm dealing with. It's just so hard for them to comprehend that there's two versions of this person. And then it's an energetic, right? We are energetic creatures, and we do experience our emotions as energy. And a lot of narcissists are able to be wonderful, charming, and stay in that wonderful energy throughout their workday with the neighbors, and they're friendly and just wonderful. And then they come home and they're exhausted, and then you get the worst of them, because they're exhausted and they've been trying to be a good person all day. And now you say the wrong thing, and you're like, what's wrong with you? You always, and then all of a sudden they go to hyperbolic, and they literally forget everything you ever did that was good. And they can be, and parts of their brains turn off. So the empathy is just not there. It's awful, right?
It is. It's terrible. Yeah.
It's the on-off switch that you get to see over and over and over. And that's the liking you when you're doing what they like, and not liking you if you're doing what they don't like. And it's wonderful if you happen to like all the same things and you're always happy to be doing what they're wanting you to do.
Mm-hmm.
It can go along really well for quite a while until something goes wrong.
Yeah. The good
Yeah.
times are great times.
The good times are the best times because
Yeah.
they're so hyperbolic about it. Oh my God, this is the best restaurant. Oh, we had the best meal ever. Oh, you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't believe how smart this person was we met. But then they also have, oh, it was the worst waiter. It was just awful. Oh, the traffic was just horrible. Like it's they tend to go both ways.
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
Yes.
It's exciting and dramatic. When you come from a narcissistic family, it's hard to have a normal life. Normal sort of feels boring. It doesn't have such highs and lows. Narcissists are missing all that in between. Most of life lives in this in between. They live in the polarized experiences of it. And that's so exciting and dramatic. You leave a narcissist family and you find normal people boring. Like, oh, yeah, they're really nice, but not very exciting. Like, yeah, they don't exaggerate everything.
Right.
And we're so used to exaggeration. It's they just go to calm when they're having a fight, when they're angry. And it seems like often the narcissist is the calm one and the partner is getting more and more upset because they're not being seen and understood ever. So then they end up dysregulating, and then the narcissist goes to calm, and then the one who's dysregulated looks like the crazy one or the abusive one.
Yes.
It's totally the opposite.
Yes.
Right?
And they sit back and look at you like, oh
Oh,
my God, you're crazy.
yeah. They push us off the ledge, and then they
Yes.
blame us for falling off the ledge.
Yes.
It's just a typical narcissist process. You end up borderline if you live with a narcissist too long, because you're adapting to them,
Mm-hmm.
and you end up dysregulating more and more and more. Just to be seen and understood, you have to dysregulate. Literally, you have to exaggerate your own emotions for them to listen to them. And you
Mm-hmm.
eventually you because they ignore. They're not attuning. Then there's a crisis. And they're like, oh, you're so dramatic. It's like, you literally didn't listen for the 12 times I asked you to do the thing,
Right.
right? You have to change the program. And that's it's become my life. It's really become my life project. Do you mind if I go into that part? So
No, please do.
I'm creating a project called the Narcissism Recovery Project. And I'm swapping out recovering narcissists more for recovering human, because there's so much in common. In the Narcissism Recovery Project, there is a collection of books coming. The first one is called The United States of Disconnection. And the United States of Disconnection is a book about what's happening right now in America, the fear-mongering that's caused division, the narcissistic processes that have been happening that cause division, what having a narcissistic Oval Office, what that does. There's narcissistic abuse happening to literally the whole country. And the whole country has suffered narcissistic abuse, and now they don't trust each other. The whole country needs to recover from narcissistic abuse. The whole country, honestly, it's become so normalized. It has been way too normalized, and emotional immaturity has become normalized. But also the American dream. The American dream is narcissistic. Having the biggest house and the best cars and the most things, like that dream is narcissistic. That's chasing materialism instead of chasing values.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having the most loving relationships and the most loving community, we want the biggest house. Like it's I have clients who move from this kind of living in condos, and they move to the suburbs to have the big house, and then they're depressed. And then I meet them because they're so depressed. They live in these suburbs. They drive in there. They used to walk out the door, and they used to know neighbors, and they used to have this feeling of community. And now they have no feeling of community, but they have a great big house. We are pack animals. We are pack animals, and we've been taught by media to be chasing these dreams of, if you have this beautiful bag, you're going to feel better walking down the street. And then you devote too many hours to buying this stupid handbag that's made in China anyway, and pretending to come from Italy. Like we value the wrong things and we chase the wrong things, right? And then you're not growing up emotionally and learning to love each other. You're learning to love Prada. Really, we need to turn this ship around. And people need to recognize we're just a bunch of pack animals. So what I'm working on right now, my assistant, bless him, he's working on it right now, is free manuals to go with the book. I'm working on companion guides to go with the United States of Disconnection, so that people can start their own book clubs, so that they can download these free guides. And I'm also creating separately just a 12-week program of connection. So literally anyone can download this PDF and invite some neighbors to come over on Tuesday evenings, and they all download this PDF. And now you have a group guide, and you can literally practice your relationship skills together, because we need to learn to love each other. We need to learn to develop trust. We need to practice our emotional skills and our relationship skills. And so I'm creating these guides that will be free PDFs that people can just start creating love loops around them, and start bringing people back together, and start conversations, and start having spaces where we're not judging each other here. We're just listening, and we're actually practicing empathy, and we're practicing love and kindness. And this is a safe space, because we all need something like AA right now. AA is a really good support group. So my dream is that there's going to be love loop groups. You can just drop in a love loop group, and you can sit in a sharing circle, and you can share that you're having a hard time with other people. It doesn't matter if you're not addicted to alcohol. You're still living in this difficult world, and you want to share it with people. There needs to be groups for that. But the more we're able to develop more trust with each other, and the more trust we create, like, trust really is a incredibly important part of society, because trust allows us to have compassion. And without compassion, it all goes wrong. It just all goes wrong. We're all flawed people, and we need compassion for each other. The traits that we consider feminine are higher level emotional skills, and we consider them feminine because they're nurtured more by feminine identified people, but they're just emotional skills. And they're skills we should all be aiming for, not just women. We all should be aiming for these skills. They're our most evolved skills. We're just meant to love each other, honestly.
Right. Well, okay. So speaking of women and love, I guess I'm going to kind of twist it like that. You have another thing that you do to help talk about narcissism.
That's true. Yeah.
And that's Doreen Devine.
That's absolutely right. So, as we know, waking up to narcissism is really the main thing that causes people to not have change. They never see it in themselves. It's always the other person's problem. It's always something wrong with them. Everyone's just stupid. It's always something else's fault. So they don't do the personal work. So I created a stage character who herself is a recovering narcissist, and she says all the things I can't say, but she's open about what's going on for her. So she's openly having narcissistic experiences, and then sharing with the audience what's going on. She's like, you know what I just did there? I just lied to myself. That's what happened. Huh? And then she goes through what happened in her, how she ended up gaslighting herself. People in the audience are not defending against this information. They're just sort of taking it in. Some of them are going like, oh my God, is that narcissistic? Is it? Oh. In fact, my own ex-partner woke up from Doreen sharing about how she feels like everyone's always watching her. I'm walking down the street and everyone's looking at me, and it's so stressful sometimes, but I also like it sometimes. She's going on about how it feels like everyone's always watching her. And he's like, I feel like that. Is that not how people feel? Like, no, that's not how everyone feels. And then, so it's the ability to identify with someone else in a way that's funny and relatable, rather than blaming and contemptible. Because if you think you're a narcissist and you say, am I a narcissist? You get hit with fire and brimstone online, right? It's just going to be all like, run, they're horrible, they're abusive. And they are horrible, and you should run. But they're also just humans having a human experience. And the more we can get in touch with each other in our human experiences, and the more we can support each other in that, the less hurtful we'll become.
I like that you use comedy, and I know that it's a bit unconventional, and some people scoff at the idea of such a heavy topic and poking fun at it. If you're hearing just all the really bad, negative things, you sort of turn off and you don't listen. But when you're talking about a topic and not making light of it, but making it more, I guess, palatable almost, then you're able to soak in the actual content of what's being trying to get across.
In Gestalt, we say it's the paradoxical theory of change.
Yeah.
We can't change what we don't accept. And right now, narcissism is not accepted, it's not acceptable, and we can't change it. We actually need to accept it. We need to recognize it. And when we accept it, that's when it shifts. And I also plan to have a one-woman show. Doreen's a singer. So I'm a baritone who didn't sing for all these years, but now that I've gotten my voice back out, I'm a singer without an audience. So, and that came back through Doreen too, because as I mentioned earlier, I was shamed out of singing.
Yeah.
And I felt a shame response, and I was too ashamed to sing in front. And that's part of what drag does as well. It gives you the confidence to bring yourself up when you've been taught to be small. And that's true for a lot of drag artists, where they're small in their lives, and then they're able to shine through their drag persona. So she's a singer. She's planning to have a show that's educating about narcissism, that has guests on, singing at the piano. I don't know if you ever heard of Dame Edna. He's a comedian from Australia who had Dame Edna as a drag queen, who was a very famous drag queen in the 90s or early 2000s, 90s. Doreen's going to be sort of like that, except Doreen can sing. Dame Edna sang, but she wasn't really a singer.
Okay.
But Doreen's, yeah. So
now,
I'm excited for that.
Is Doreen doing live shows, or is Doreen going to do like a video show?
We're not sure how it's going to go yet.
Okay.
I have so many projects going at the same time.
You have a full plate. So speaking of Doreen, I know that you and I talked about this before we started recording, but just because I think the queer community can probably identify a lot with Doreen too, but there's specific struggles when it comes to narcissism and with the queer community. Can you just jump into a little bit about that specifically?
Yeah. Well, we talked about narcissism being disconnection and living in secrecy. This happens to a lot of people. If you're growing up in a family system where it doesn't feel acceptable to be open about how you're experiencing your sexuality or your gender, or if you feel like in your community, you end up hiding your true experience from others. And I did that myself. I was absolutely hiding my true experience from others. And you end up living in secret, which is exactly what a narcissist is doing. They're living in secret. And to keep that secret up, you end up having narcissistic defenses that develop over time. So living in the closet itself causes us to need narcissistic defenses because no one's really there with us on our team. So if no one's really on our team, we need to new strategies like, oh, I don't need them anyway. Or, oh, I'm smarter than them anyway. Or I can do everything better than them. Like they often end up in grandiose strategies to feel okay because they're so alone. Like, oh yeah. And they leave reality a little bit because they're so alone, but also valuing things that are superficial because they are denying their true identity, and they're not feeling acceptable. And because you're not feeling acceptable, there's shame. There can be so much shame there. I was drowning in shame. I literally thought everybody in my life would reject me if they knew I was attracted to the same sex. That was how I felt about it. And I was going to an evangelical church that told me it was evil. So I had this huge shame that I was avoiding. And that's what happens with narcissism. They're avoiding shame. So if you force someone to live in shame, then they're avoiding this emotion. They end up avoiding all the emotions around shame as well, which means they end up not feeling this whole range of emotions, which means they have a lack of empathy because they're avoiding this whole set of emotions. So if I'm not letting myself feel shame, I'm not going to feel ashamed of the thing I just did to you either. It's much easier for them to ghost each other and to just treat each other with a total lack of empathy. If I've learned not to feel things, I'm not feeling things with you. If I've learned not to feel sad, then I'm not going to feel sad with you if I've made you sad. And I don't even recognize that I've made you sad. So there can be this detachment. And there is quite a lot of narcissism in the LGBTQ community. And learning to love each other is also the work there, creating love loops. And we're getting better. We've been getting better in the last couple of decades because we're not so rejected, right? We understand now that we can't change someone's sexuality just by that kind of identification, but we can save someone's life when they don't feel like they're absolutely alone in the world. Because I did try to kill myself. I tried to kill myself more than once. And that lack of belonging, that lack of self-acceptance came from the lack of acceptance around me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you should stand up for your trans neighbors, your LGBTQ neighbors, and your migrant neighbors.
If somebody wanted to get your book or eventually see Doreen or, whatever, any of these things that you have, how can they get in touch with you or how can they follow you?
So the main website that maybe it'll be out by the time your episode's out, the
hopefully.
Narcissism Recovery Project is the main website. So the narcissismrecoveryproject.com
Okay.
is where is going to be the blanket for all the different books. It'll have the United States of Disconnection. I'm already working on a Canadian version called We're Not Immune, because we have a slightly different version of narcissism up here.
Okay.
And then I have some other countries in mind. And also loveloops.net or no .org. Loveloops.org is really the main place for the Love Loops workbooks that are coming. Literally being formatted, some of them right now. But it'll all be attached. You can go to either one and find both.
Okay.
And Doreen's written through the book as the comedian. She's the comic relief in quite a few chapters. It's a really different kind of book. And I'm excited for the workbooks too. I feel like they're going to be interesting, not just a workbook. It's also something that's going to be enjoyable. In these workbooks, I'm making celebrity identifications so that, because a lot of celebrities have talked about their narcissistic relationships and their own struggles with narcissism or mental health. So I've included quite a few little stories of, like Adele, she clearly had a narcissist partner before she wrote 21, because pretty much all those songs are written about a narcissistic partner.
Right.
And quite a few people. So there's quotes by people throughout the book, to keep that little identification, like, oh, her too. Oh, them too. Oh, wow. And there's also top 10 lists to make it easier to digest. The top 10 things that are toxic behaviors, the top 10 things that are most likely for a daughter of a narcissist to suffer from, or the top 10. I've just put a whole bunch of top 10 lists and made it a lot more digestible. So I'm really excited for these books. I hope they cause a big stir. A lot of them are going to be free and published. So if you can, you can download it and print it, but if you want the pretty one, you can click on Amazon and buy it from there too.
And then, so I guess before we close, is there any parting ideas, thoughts, or advice that you want to share?
Really, the main thing is we are just a bunch of human pack animals. And I do believe our natural state is loving each other. And I think love and kindness is actually a healthy way to be living with our neighbors and our friends and the people around us and the people on the bus and the people on the subway. I really think, and fear pulls us apart. And we need to start counteracting the fear by learning who people are, by introducing ourselves to our neighbors. Introduce yourself to your neighbors. There's one way you can do it. We're not meant to live independently. We do better in community. We absolutely do. And some people go to church and they find a loving community and they think, oh, it only happens at church. But like, no, it can happen anywhere you love each other. It's just we've forgotten how to do it, and that we should. But the more we do it, the more they love us back. Like, really, you can make the grocery store more fun just by being just by being friendly as you're going through it instead of cold and detached.
Absolutely. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. You can hear I can talk for a few hours without
I mean, we'll keep talking as soon as I hit stop. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Thank you again, Darren, for joining me today. And thank you, Warriors, for listening. You can find all of the links Darren was referring to, along with his 1 in 3 profile, listed in the show notes. Before we wrap up, I need to say this one more time. If you think you are in a relationship with a narcissist or anyone who is abusive, please make plans to leave as soon as possible. Protect yourself and protect anyone else who may be affected. You cannot change the abuser. The abuse will escalate. If there is any hope for change, Leave that up to the professionals, not you. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. Got it? Good. I'll be back next week with another episode for you. Until then, wherever you are in your journey, always remember, you are not alone. Find more information, register as a guest, or leave a review by going to the website 1in3podcast.com. That's the number 1, IN, the number 3, podcast.com. Follow 1in3 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1in3podcast. To help me out, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. 1in3 is a .5 Pinoy production. Music written and performed by Tim Crow.